Rob, where are you right now? What part of the world?
I'm in the glorious sunny location. I bet you can't guess, Marco. Have a guess.
I know. If I had to guess, I wouldn't guess. I know where you are. I'm just making a joke. I want you to say, but it doesn't look like you are where you say you are.
I've got my suntan out. It's been brilliant. I've got a beer on the side. It's been fantastically sunny. About 30 minutes ago, it was pouring like the biblical heavens had opened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm in sunny Shoreham by Sea in West Sussex on the south coast of England, just outside Brighton.
And sunny UK. I would have never thought I was going to hear that.
And today has definitely been one of those where we've had the 4 seasons. I'm expecting snow in about 45 minutes, to be honest. So, the light is blindingly bright and hot. It's beautiful right now. There's a blowing gale outside. If I opened the door next to me, you would see papers flying everywhere. And this is our first week after the summer holidays has finished, and you would think we're sort of transitioning into the depth of winter by the end of today. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but we have had deluge after deluge this morning, and now it's just started to brighten up. So yeah, it's a great start, I think, for me this week, to be honest.
Wow, very nice. So that shows, or at least we believe you. You are in the UK, as you said. I am in LA, so we're on 2 different sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, I'm really on the other side, because I can drive half an hour and be on the Pacific Ocean, and that will take much longer to come over there. But the reason why, of course, I ask you where you are is because this is not a Redefining Society podcast or Redefining Society and Technology or cybersecurity. I'm excited, man. It's a new show that we decided to call the ITSPmagazine Europe, the Transatlantic Broadcast. So we show our love for radio, I guess, here. Instead of podcast, we're calling it broadcast. I think it's, it reminds me of the BBC and the serious broadcaster. And not to say that the podcaster are not serious, but, it's just like, it's a little bit more iconic to me.
I think it perhaps just shows our age. We're more of the radio generation than we're the podcast generation. Perhaps that's what it is.
Yeah, we didn't grow up directly with a smartphone in our hand, did we?
No, we're still learning. We're the digital immigrants, as they say. But at least we didn't go with the transatlantic telegraph. Let's think about it like that. It's positive. We're in that loop at least. So yeah.
Yeah, I was actually gonna do a little reference to Marconi. There is a big debate who invented the radio, so I'm not gonna go in there. But being Italian, I'm gonna go with Marconi. And he did the first transmission, over the Atlantic from the UK actually to Newfoundland. Newfoundland in Canada. I think back in 1903. I'm gonna check on Google or artificial intelligence just to be sure about that. But the point is, let's talk a little bit about this idea, how it came about. And so we go on the other way around. I usually say, let's introduce ourselves. In this case, let's introduce the content and the topic and the idea, which, we've been knowing for a while, each other. Of course, Sean is also going to be part of this, but it's not here today. If somebody was watching, there is a radio there and a map in the background. If you're watching the podcast, you're going to have to believe me. But he's not here, but he will. And he will be the New York, probably the New York City broadcaster, while I'll be either in Florence or in Los Angeles. And of course, you will be in the UK or wherever we're going to be when we decide to record. And we were together at InfoSecurity Europe. It seems a long time ago, but it was only a few months ago.
I know, it's scary, isn't it? How quickly time's flying. Yeah.
So we recorded a couple of episodes, 3 episodes, I think there, 2 or 3, I don't remember. And we were like, well, this is fun. There is a good chemistry. We should probably keep doing this. So
we always have fascinating conversations, don't we? And I think that's what's so exciting about the space we occupy, the kind of the stage society is at the moment. If we're not fascinated observers and commentators on what's going on around us, then I think we're missing a trick. And I think for me, that's what gets me motivated by the work I do and the people I engage with and seeing the challenges they face. And if we can't take a moment to step back and reflect about how interesting they are, how difficult they can be, then I really think we're not appreciating the age we're in. And I think that's perhaps where I think this is the focus of our conversations. Really, is just to enable us to kind of triangulate across different parts of the globe and reflect on society as we know it, and the conversations that we're all having, and the differences between different perspectives that are coming to bear on these conversations. And I think that's really exciting, because there's so much evolving at so many different speeds and different rates that we're not quite sure what the future looks like, and we're not sure how things are going to evolve, and what additional developments might happen that will shape things entirely differently. I mean, just a few, we're in the wave of the AI generation at the moment, where we're going to be seeing massive changes to the workforces, massive changes to the concept of work, and to not be able to process and see what that might mean or see what they might think about, I think would be a real shame, to be honest. So for me, that's what's really exciting about these topics, and the hope that we've got in this session as well.
Yeah. So we're going to have kind of the same wide, let's say, focus that ITSP magazine in general have. So it's technology, society, and cybersecurity. So I think we're going to end up being a little bit more focused on the cybersecurity side. But nowadays, as I always say, you can't really say, oh, let's just talk about technology without, I mean, you could talk technology without cybersecurity, but that would be a big big mistake. And you cannot talk, of course, cybersecurity without technology. And again, without looking at how this affects society, that would be really, really screwed up. So, yeah. But the other thing that I think is important, I could have this conversation. I've been having this conversation for the longest time, but it's either you talk to somebody from Europe, which, by the way, of course, it's a lot of different culture came together, and Europe, we're referring to the continent here, so we can include the UK actually. But
we made some poor decisions. We made some poor decisions, but there we go. So,
I don't know if it was the wise one, but I think there's been taken some remedy to reconnect anyway. So we'll see where that goes. But the point is sharing and having an open conversation, because when we talk about technology, cybersecurity, it's most certainly not something that you can talk within borders, right? You can't talk about this. If cyber attack happened, you don't know where it came from, and psychology and culture, how we train our workforce and how we educate the users or the businesses.
And I think even more than that, you're absolutely right. In this globalized age, we're dealing with, instant information relay around the world. We're dealing with borders that are no longer applicable, and we're dealing with people who are being connected in other ways. Back in, if we think of the Arab Spring, how technology enabled the Arab Spring back then really facilitated a collective consciousness around disparate groups, no matter where they were in the Arab world, and more broadly than that. And I think that's what we're kind of tuning into here, is that not only are we seeing globalized society now existing above and beyond that of the nation state, but we're also seeing how those individual, regional and local and national perspectives are also shaping things as well. So if we talk about legislation, regulations, they're seeing nuances to different regions. If we're talking about technology design, we're seeing, if you look at analytical or algorithmic biases, we're talking about that in AI, and recognizing that being coded by one person in one part of the world, you'll have a very different set of rules and machine learning that will occur compared to it being coded by someone else. So those similarities, but yet differences that we're touching on are so critical to how technology is shaping society, but also how technology is being shaped as well. And I think that's where it's a two-way street in really kind of teasing out these issues and exploring how they might play out for us.
Yeah. And now on top of all these cultural differences, and I mean, when you talk about biases, and I think about AI, and I think like, what is the core of the knowledge base of, the LLM and where it learned. And then I'm thinking like, well, we're kind of lucky in a way, because we may search for something, we get that Western perspective on things, because it's been trained on, let's face it, on Western, culture and books and articles. And I'm wondering sometimes, like, if somebody from a different part of the world, in the East or, in Africa, how is it going to react to those answers when it's not really targeting the way of seeing things? And I think we tend to forget this, like just like, the old study in the room, developing a new software or a technology. It's comes from the same place, and they all the same color and the same religion and the same. We're limited. We're just limited. Stupidly limited.
and we're all pattern matching sense making machines. So we know, we base our decision making as individuals on the experiences we've had, the cultural beliefs that we've had imposed on us or encouraged on us, and the societal conditions that we exist in. So even as individuals, we might interact with the same incident, the same activity, and interact with it so differently because of our backgrounds and our experiences and our expectations of what we bring, which means we can even be looking at the same piece of technology and see something completely different. So, we might see it as a threat, and someone else might see it as an opportunity. We might see it as a massive enabler to work, and we might also see it as a massive hindrance. And perhaps the obvious example of that is the smartphone. And we've talked about being digital natives and digital immigrants, and here how we're perhaps of the generation that is the digital immigrants, but we weren't brought up on the smartphone. You see how kids run around and children use technology now and use smartphone now. They don't know anything but using the internet to search for information. YouTube videos are much more a source of information to them, or TikTok videos, than any book or library or anything else information resource that we would have defaulted to and turned to. So how does that shape their experience of how they learn, how they engage with information, how they trust information, which then plays out into some of the bigger societal issues that we're also experiencing? And we're in the post-truth age. I think we're probably past the post-truth age now in politics, and I think that's a great example of.
That scared the shit out of me.
But that's exactly an example of how people search for information differently now, and as a result, their ability to critically consume information is different, and as a result, it's being shared differently than we would have otherwise done. And now you're seeing the people, on social media, hijacking protests to trigger reactions, responses, whatever it might mean, to get content, to get viewers, to get likes, a million miles away from the issues they're dealing with initially. But again, that's all kind of spiraled from the initial technology developments of what the big tech companies were thinking about with social media. Yeah. I've actually just finished reading that book from is it Careless People, the first policy lead in Facebook or Meta, and how this individual was brought in and they were just grappling with a realization that they needed to have some consideration of the geopolitical issues, the issues that they were facing, to gain influence, first of all, amongst the nation, the national leaders they're engaging with. But then there was this dawning realization of, the tech they were producing is no longer just tech. This is enabling access. This is enabling persecution. This is enabling so many different things that they hadn't even considered when they were first designing the material. And again, scary and daunting, but at the same time fascinating to see how that's playing out and what that might mean today and going forward in the future.
Yeah, information always and mass media always come. There is a double sword always. I just literally 3 days ago, because my head was already in the broadcasting with this idea that we were getting ready to launch, and this is the pilot pretty much for that. I wrote a newsletter about how the transistor radio was the first smartphone of a different generation, was a personalized use of the radio, where it was in the time of the rock and roll revolution in the 60s and the late 50s, where the family didn't want to listen maybe to the rock and roll in the living room with a big radio. And so this small transistor radio was something that the kids could bring to the beach in their own community, under the bed at night. And I found it really fascinating from a sociological perspective. So I actually wrote a little article about that in my newsletter. But it also makes me reflect on what you said. And I think also is at the core of these different perspectives. Because coming with the double sword, you invent something and you think it's going to work in a certain way. And the truth is that it just worked the way that people use technology. You can imagine technology to be like, oh, there is going to be used for this. And most of the time it's correct, but the user are always going to be finding a different way. Like you can use radio waves in the 30s and the 40s and the 20s for propaganda to win election, but kids found a way to use it to listen to pirate radio and bring the rock and roll and the rebellion and the anti-Vietnam War and so many things. And I think in our show, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to look at that topic, I think, from two different perspectives, and maybe we're all going to come out a little bit smarter because of that.
And I think, again, that would be exciting to hear perhaps the non-traditionally expected voices. So not just the technologists, but we will have those on there. But people who might be doing their best to protect or secure a part of civil society against some of the evolved threats that we weren't previously considering, or people who might be kind of reflecting on concepts such as trust and faith in technology these days and what that might mean. And I know I've taunted you in the past with a conversation about AI sex bots, but what does that mean for the fundamentals?
we'll have one of those conversations.
Exactly. But again, it means we can revisit everything. And I think that's, if we talked about the transistor radio enabling so much, and I completely putting the power of information in people's hands. I think we're in this computer mediated age. And I think virtual reality is the next step of that mediated existence, where every concept that we've thought about in terms of how humans react to each other and how they react to the world around them now needs to be reconsidered in light of how humans react through a computer-mediated existence. And that is both daunting and scary and exciting at the same time. This is the opportunity for us to have an instantaneous real-time conversation with you being over in LA, me being in the UK, discussing what these concepts mean across the continents, in an age where we've never been able to do this before. And now we can do it at a click of a button, a touch of a button, almost for free. And that empowering of individuals is something we're now seeing in different ways. The social media influencer creating careers for themselves from nothing more than being a person in the right place at the right time with a camera. We've now got cameras in our pockets on our smartphones. This is changing everything. And it's so significant a shift. And we've got so much opportunity to reflect on this. It can only be exciting, I think.
Yep. And that's the key, to reflect. So I think we should kind of give an idea of what we're, I think people are getting an idea of what we're going for, but how, that's a little bit different, meaning like maybe some ideas on who we think some of the guests are going to be, not necessarily names because we don't have a list of people already, but, kind of like the type of guests. We talk about academic, researchers, people.
I thought we'd agreed Taylor Swift. I thought she was our first one to get on the list.
Well, I was going for Noel and Liam Gallagher, but we'll talk Oasis later on. But before we go there, I'm sure Liam has opinion on this. So hey Liam, if you're listening, come on, man. You know what I mean? Let's just say who is Rob. Come on. So, Rob, a little bit of your background for those that don't know who you are.
Okay, I'll hopefully make it interesting and exciting. So, I'm Rob Black. I'm a confused being in cybersecurity, I guess, is that I've spent my career helping people think about the human elements of cyber in an interesting way. So, I was fortunate enough to work with the UK Ministry of Defence, putting through the human sciences research that we had, understand how people get influenced, understand how we can understand people through different aspects of our digital identity, and working with the operational teams in the UK government, looking at how we wove that into our cyber operations. So for me, that was a really fascinating opportunity to kind of grasp and consider how warfare and conflict of today is going to be enabled through the digital domain. My background is in international relations and international law. So for me, the geopolitics of cyber is absolutely fascinating to see how it's being used as an extension of statecraft in today's age. And that, to me, is something we really are seeing play out on the world stage, quite literally. If we look at how the kinetic conflict in Ukraine as we speak at the moment is so significantly shaped by the narrative battle that is occurring around us. And if we look at how the pre-positioning of efforts and activities with cyberspace, with some of the various different APTs, is really enabling states to think about how they hold other nations to ransom in some way with regards to force and effect and politics. So for me, I think at the geopolitical level, seeing how technology is shaping a way for us to fight without going to war is really interesting. And that's the kind of a conversation I'm sure we'll come back to time and time again. And then beyond that, I also find myself fortunate to be working in a space where I engage with senior cybersecurity leaders and chief information security officers thinking about their day-to-day tasks and how they are on the front line of today's war in cyber. So, they have to make difficult and challenging decisions about prioritizing effort, prioritizing transformation programs, security programs, resilience programs to make sure that their organizations are sufficiently robust and resilient to what can only be seen as a onslaught of a variety of different threat actors and participants, nefarious actors on the world stage. So, we're seeing in the news the organizations persistently coming under attack and persistently being forced to make difficult decisions about how they operate whilst under attack and how they maintain services in an age where every threat actor is after them in some capacity. And so for me, understanding these individuals don't necessarily see themselves at the heart of a conflict, but they're definitely living on that front line. And I think that brings a whole new dimension to thinking about this adversarial environment that we're finding ourselves within cyber. And so that's where I spend most of my time in the day-to-day existence. And I also work, last but not least, with a lot of university students here in the UK, thinking about those leadership skills that we want them to develop in cybersecurity in particular. So, too often we spend our time focusing on cyber, on the technical aspects of the cyber incident and understanding technical components. But we need individuals who can communicate complex technical issues and topics, who can communicate them to a lay audience or a senior decision maker on the board and get them to understand why it's challenging and understand why they need to prioritize that. We need them to be comfortable understanding that they're operating in a complex environment and there isn't a simple answer anymore, but there might be a range of answers which are nearly good enough, but not quite perfect, but being comfortable operating with a degree of risk, whereas before they were used to just having a definite answer. We need them to be able to communicate risks separately and differently in a way that they might be able to kind of cumulatively capture risks across a range of different options, if I can put my teeth back in. And so those skill sets that we're seeing being needed in cyber, I think are absolutely critical, but often overlooked. And I think they're the kind of conversations that I think will feed into us. We want people to be making informed yet difficult decisions, but realizing they're making the best decision they can when there might not be a perfect answer, and getting people comfortably operating that space is a really new environment for us to be in, I think. So that's where I spend most of my time in the day jobs, and then have the luxury and the real privilege to have the freedom to have conversations with people such as yourself and others where we can really tease out what these issues might be and what might happen as a result of some of these developments. And I feel very privileged to have that luxury as well.
You forgot to mention that you were also UK Cyber Citizen of the Year 2024, which of course is my job to actually give it to you and say that's pretty cool, right?
I'm very honored to be recognized that by the community. I say I feel like an imposter quite a lot of the time because I don't spend my time hunched over a keyboard tapping away at code or conducting ethical hacking, but I feel like I've made a contribution in the various different areas I've worked on, and that has fundamentally been enabling dialogue between different people. And again, I think that is really at the heart of what we're trying to do here, is facilitate dialogue from different perspectives on interesting topics. And so to be recognized for that was absolutely fantastic and a real honor, to be honest. So.
Yeah, it is really cool. It's really cool what you're doing, and that's why I felt like we needed to do this together. I mean, I love you as a person. You're great to talk to. You're also great communicator, and you're passionate about what you do. So I mean, both me and Sean, we were like, we got to do something, and I think that's exactly what we're gonna bring on, right? I mean, people know, I think they know me, but in general, I'm like you. I mean, I'm a doctor in political science with sociology of communication. So Sean is gonna be the more maybe like cybersecurity as an analyst and a journalist when he's gonna sit in the middle there, or because we're gonna be hosting conversation with guests, sometimes the three of us, sometimes maybe just you or me. So this is not me interviewing you. This is we're co-host partners in this adventure. And it's funny because, like I said, I'm in cybersecurity because of Sean, and I'm always looking at the societal part of things. So with me and you, from geopolitics and international relationship, and I bring philosophy and sociology. I like to look at everything from different perspective. I think it's going to be fun, and I think we will pick our guests based on, I think, passion. I want passionate people. I want people that want to, like us. They want to make a difference. They have some perspective. They are not fighting over it. They're actually conversational and able to listen to the other side, right? Yeah. Again, if it is Europe or if this, I don't like to go political, but sometimes even just a different perspective may bring to that, but in a constructive way. So I want these to be a connection that maybe allow us to have a better perspective on things. So I'm very excited about it, and I want academics. I mean, I know many of them. I want people from legislation, government to come on, and that alone, just in Europe, you're talking about different perspective. I mean, Spain, France, Germany. I mean, it's a European community, but it's history. It's history of differences.
Absolutely,
that goes 2 centuries.
Quilt, isn't it? Yeah,
2,000 years and more.
I think that's the diversity we want. We really want to bring different perspectives together. We really want to hear from different people. So, any of you out there fancies joining us, please do get in touch, because I think we're looking for that exciting challenge, that exciting conversation, and you're working in the field that is exciting. So let's explore it, and let's be charged by those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's naturally getting to the end of this pilot. Again, I'm sorry that Sean couldn't be part of this, but he was here in spirit, and for sure he's going to be back with us in the next episodes. This is, again, like a way to open our hearts and to what our vision is. I hope people are listening and are going to be excited about it. I go with you again with, if you want to be part of the show, please do that. If you want to be part of the show because you have a company, because you want to support what we say, of course, we will be looking for sponsors. That's what podcast and radio do, right? So you're more than welcome to join us on an early stage. We would love to have that conversation. And mostly just subscribe and help us to share on social media, on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you are. TikTok. I recently had to join TikTok too. I don't know. Like, I did it for my mom's story for kids, but that's wild. Talking about, I felt like this is not LinkedIn anymore. It's like you're not in Kansas anymore. I felt very, very old in 2 seconds on TikTok. But gotta be there. Gotta bring the conversation to everyone. I think is important. Are you on TikTok?
I was having a conversation about the university student competition that we run, about us getting the competition on TikTok. So we will be having that. I can't say I personally am on TikTok, although I have a niece who is active on TikTok, and she just looks at me with such utter disgust and contempt that I am so uncool, and I don't know how to edit the video that she can just put together in seconds, and that I should never be on TikTok because that would just be embarrassing. So I think that's probably where I sit on TikTok. But surrounded by it, but not quite on it yet. So
yeah, well, I think it is about experimenting. If we want to criticize things, and by criticizing, I don't mean in a negative way necessarily, because we always give that connotation to, being a critic as being somebody negative. I think when you criticize something, you can actually bring positive aspect about the thing that you're criticizing. You're just analyzing, you're kind of hacking it, you're breaking it apart and see what works and what doesn't. And so that goes for technology too. I'm like, I joined a few new AI to make videos and to do music. Either I'm going to do content with that or not, but if I talk about it, I need to figure it out, at least the basic of it, because I don't like when people are just like, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, have you tried? No, but I don't like it. What the hell do you know?
It's it has to be action-based research, doesn't it? You've got to get involved in it, and
a little empirical, right?
Like and as an anthropologist, not an anthropologist myself, but working with anthropologists, the idea of that relationship between being a participant and an observer, but a commentator having had that experience is absolutely critical, I think. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I am sure this is going to be a lot of fun, and I can now actually wait to be maybe in London soon, and maybe we do like an event that we record together. We've been talking about that too.
Absolutely. I got some ideas.
Maybe we get into the BBC tower and we'll do something there.
We'll try and sort something out to make that happen. That'd be good.
That will be fun. All right, Rob Black, Marco Ciappelli, it's me. Sean Martin is not here, but this is the Transatlantic Broadcast, where cybersecurity, technology, and society meet across borders and perspectives. So that's what it is. Subscribe, share, stay with us, and I hope we are at least a little excited, because we are excited, and I can't wait to have our first real episode. But I really enjoyed this, Rob. Always a pleasure hanging with you.
Absolutely. And look forward to the next one.